Hi, everyone. When I was 7 years old, my family went on vacation with another family whose children were around the same age as me and my sister. We arrived at the condo where we were to stay for 10 days. We found out that myself and the oldest boy in the other family were to share a bunk bed. And of course, both of us wanted the top bunk in that bunk bed for ourselves. And for some reason, I don't know what that reason is, I was given the top bunk for the first night at least. And I went to sleep very happy that I was in that top bunk and very excited for the next 10 days of vacation. I woke up the next morning in a completely different state than when I went to bed that night. I found myself not on the top bunk where I had fallen asleep, but instead on the bottom bunk, all tucked in like I had been there all night. I was confused, and then I was annoyed, and then I became angry because in my child's mind, I just naturally assumed that the father of the other family had, in the middle of the night, snuck out of his bedroom, come over to our bunk bed, and switched our positions so that his son could have the top bunk like he wanted, and I had to spend the rest of the night on the bottom bunk instead. I just knew that that's what had happened. And so I got out of bed very much on the wrong side and the wrong half of the bed. And I realized quite quickly that there was a pain that was not there the day before. My left arm, specifically right above my left wrist, had just jolts of pain emanating from that one spot out into the rest of my body. And I didn't really make anything of it. I was pretty rambunctious as a child, and I was a thrill seeker and reckless with my own safety, as many 7-year-old boys are. So I trudged out into the living room to find my parents there, and remembering how indignant I was at the crime committed against me the night before, I merely took my case to the two people in my life I saw as judge and jury. And after my parents said good morning, or in the middle of their good morning to me, I blurted out what injustice had been committed the night before by the other family's father in order to give his son what rightfully belonged to me. And my parents laughed, which was a common reaction, I guess, growing up to my antics, and then took pity on me and said, "Do you not remember what happened last night?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Did you really not wake up until right now?" And I said, "Yes," unsure of where this was going. And my mom said, "Oh, honey, he didn't switch you. You fell out of the top bunk last night while you were sleeping. We heard you hit the ground. And when we came out, you were still curled up on the floor, fast asleep. So we decided to protect you by putting you on the bottom bunk so that if you rolled out, it wouldn't hurt as bad. And we put him on the top bunk instead. We're sorry, we figured you would have woken up." I couldn't believe it. I was confused, I was a little shocked. The pain in my left wrist and arm suddenly made more sense. And so I went back to the bunk bed where my friend, the son in the other family, was still sleeping. And I looked at the bed. I looked at the top bunk and the bottom bunk. And the bottom bunk had no guard rail, which made sense. It was the bottom bunk. But something I had neglected to take into account the night before was the top bunk also had no guardrail. I had been going to camp for a couple years and I knew the top bunks always had guards on them. I never really made the connection. I never really understood what exactly were there for. It made no sense that someone would roll all the way off their bed while sleeping. I'd never heard of such a thing. But now it kind of made sense that those top bunks at my camp had guardrails. And so it made less sense why this one in front of me did not have a guardrail. And as my arm continued to throb worse and worse, and my wrist was starting to feel very funny and look very swollen, I wondered, why didn't this have a guardrail? Why would people install a bunk bed that they knew children would be sleeping on and then open them up to injury with negligence? I asked my parents, and they didn't really have an answer for me. My wrist, we assumed, was just a really bad sprain, as I had had many sprains already in my 7-year-old life. Turns out later I actually had a hairline fracture that thankfully healed pretty much on its own without a cast. And while I no longer assume evil intent by people out to get me in the middle of the night, I do still have that same curiosity that I had all those decades ago. Why do we just allow bad things to happen when there's a simple technique to stop them? Why are we so intent on waiting for something bad to happen and then treating the effect when we could instead just install something simple to prevent the need for that treatment and prevent that negative effect from taking place at all? Prevention is the key in health and safety, but also in business, and most especially in retail and retail loss prevention. That's what this channel is going to be about. How to prevent bad things from happening in the first place and protect the health and safety of your business in the long term. Stay tuned.